The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was alive with strange noises. Dozens of alien leaders sat at a long, curved table. Their skins were blue, green, silver, some covered in spikes, others with glowing eyes. The air smelled of metal and ozone. Above them, lights glowed softly, and the giant windows showed the stars outside. Today was supposed to be a normal meeting until the humans arrived. Ambassador David Cole stood outside the doors, waiting. He wore a black suit and tie. His face was calm, but his hand lightly touched a small black box he carried under his arm. Behind the doors, he heard laughter. They are already laughing, he thought. Good, let them laugh. A mechanical voice announced him, Representative of Earth, David Cole, you may enter. The tall doors slid open. Every eye in the hall turned toward him. David stepped forward slowly, his shoes clicking on the shining floor. The laughter grew louder now that they saw him clearly, just a man, no claws. No wings, no armor. Just flesh and bone in a suit. One alien, tall and covered in golden scales, leaned back in his chair and spoke loudly. So this is the mighty Earth? A child in cloth? More laughter filled the hall. David walked to the center of the room and placed the black box on the table without saying a word. His calm silence only made the aliens laugh harder. Another alien, this one with 3 eyes, and a voice like broken glass, sneered at him. You bring a toy to the council? Do you plan to amuse us, human? David finally raised his eyes. His gaze moved slowly from one face to another. His voice was quiet but carried across the hall. I hope your laughter is ready to face the fire, he said. The room fell silent for a moment, confused. Then a silver-skinned alien slammed his fist and barked, What did you say, creature? David only smiled slightly and pressed a button on the box. A soft hum filled the air, and a hologram appeared above the table. At first, it showed only blackness. Then, slowly lights appeared. Giant shapes moved through the dark. Massive ships, their surfaces bristling with weapons, their engines glowing like angry suns. The laughter stopped. What is this? One alien whispered. This, said David calmly, is the other side of silence. The hologram showed a scene of human warships emerging from black holes, firing beams that split asteroids in half. Alien fleets in the simulation were crushed in seconds. The golden-scaled leader snorted. Clever, but holograms are just tricks. You have no real power. You are weak. David turned off the hologram. His calm voice carried again. We came in peace, but if you insist. He gently tapped the box. We will come in fire. An alarm blared suddenly from the walls. Red lights flashed. A voice crackled through the speakers. Warning! Unidentified fleet entering orbit. Dozens of massive ships detected. The aliens froze. One by one, they turned to the windows. The stars outside disappeared, swallowed by shapes so large they blocked the light. David remained standing, hands folded behind his back. They're here, he said softly. The sky outside glowed red as engines burned against the blackness. Enormous human dreadnoughts drifted into view, their cannons aimed silently at the planet below. They're real, one alien gasped. The 3-eyed alien scrambled to his feet. Defenses! Activate defenses now. But the council's screens flashed error messages. Systems failed. Lights flickered and went dark. David spoke again, calmly. That was just a warning shot. Our ships have disabled your defense grid. Your weapons are useless. Panic spread like fire through the hall. The alien leaders began shouting at each other, arguing what to do. You can't do this, screamed the silver-skinned alien. You're primitives. You have no right, David cut him off sharply. We have every right. You laughed at us, mocked us, ignored us. Not anymore. He pressed another button on the box. A second hologram appeared, this time showing a Massive human superweapon hovering over a planet. A beam fired from it, turning the surface into molten glass. "This," said David, pointing to the image, "is called the solar hammer. We have 12 of them. Right now, one is above your capital moon, waiting for my command." The golden-scaled leader stood slowly, his hands shaking. What do you want from us?" he asked. David finally let himself smile faintly. "Respect," he said simply, "and a seat at this table. As equals, or the fire will not stop with just your ships." The room was silent now except for the distant hum of the human fleet outside. One by one, the alien sat back down. The three-eyed alien muttered, I vote to accept Earth as a full member of the Council." Others followed quickly. The golden-scaled leader's voice broke as he spoke. "Agreed. Earth is welcome." David picked up the black box, tucked it under his arm, and straightened his tie. "Good choice," he said softly. Outside, the human ships began to move away, silent and disciplined. The lights in the hall flickered back on as systems came online again. The aliens watched in silence, their faces pale, their eyes full of fear and something new, respect. David turned to leave, but at the door, he stopped and looked over his shoulder. "Remember," he said, "we prefer peace. But never mistake silence for weakness." He walked out, and the doors closed behind him. Far above the Council planet, the human ships melted back into the stars, quiet, patient, and waiting. And across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Like wind in the dark, "Do not laugh at the humans, or you will see the fire." David sat in his shuttle, watching the Council world shrink below. A young officer sitting beside him asked, nervously, "Sir, what if they try to betray us again?" David smiled faintly, eyes still on the stars. "Then," he said, "we remind them." This was just the beginning. The shuttle engines roared softly, and they disappeared into the black dot far away. In the shadows of space, thousands more human ships waited, silent giants among the stars, ready for the next time someone dared to laugh. David Cole leaned back in his chair as the shuttle drifted quietly through space. The stars outside shone like icy fires, cold and distant. The memory of the Council's laughter still echoed faintly in his mind, followed by their fear when the fire came. He closed his eyes and let himself remember that it began long before he was born, before he wore a suit and carried the black box. It began in the shadows of history, when humans were still fighting each other for scraps of earth and sky. On the screens inside the shuttle, a file blinked open. It was a recording, a piece of humanity's story, hidden from the galaxy for centuries. It started with war. The year was 2479. Earth was dying. The seas had risen. The air was full of poison. Cities lay in ruins from centuries of greed and violence. But humanity did what it always did. It fought. Not just with weapons, but with teeth, with fire, with desperate hope. In the ashes of New Shanghai, a small group of survivors huddled underground. A young woman named Mara stood before them, her clothes torn, her face streaked with soot. "They think we're finished," she said, her voice shaking but full of steel. "They think humanity is weak, but they don't understand. We are not weak, we just haven't shown them yet." Her brother, Yalan, laughed bitterly. "Show them what? We don't even have clean water, Mara. We're starving." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll stop starving. We'll stop hiding, and we'll start building." From those ruined tunnels, they began to plan. Above them, alien ships hung in the clouds like dark knives. The first visitors from the stars had come as friends, offering medicine and technology. But soon, they demanded tribute. They took Earth's resources, enslaved its people, and left nothing but pain. Mara watched them from the shadows and whispered, "One day, we'll burn you all out of our sky." Years passed. The survivors grew in number. Hidden bunkers turned into secret cities, deep underground and far from alien eyes. Engineers and scientists worked day and night, powered by rage and stubborn hope. They dug into the earth and into the stars, stealing pieces of alien tech, breaking it apart, learning its secrets. One night, Mara stood over a table where a strange glowing engine lay in pieces. Her fingers traced the metal like it was alive. "This is just the beginning," she murmured. "We'll build ships bigger than theirs, stronger, faster, and when we're ready, we'll take back our sky." But the aliens kept coming, hungrier and crueler. Whole cities vanished overnight. Children were taken. Villages burned. Still, humanity did not stop. In the underground hangars, monstrous shapes began to take form. At first, they were clumsy, ugly metal beasts that couldn't even fly straight. But every failure taught them something new. Jalen, now older and harder, stood beside Mara as they watched the first real warship rise from its cradle. It was black as midnight, sharp and silent. Along its side, painted in white, were the words, "Vengeance 1." Jalen laughed softly, but it was not a happy sound. "Do you think it's enough?" he asked. Mara's eyes glittered. "No," she said. "But it's a start." The war began in secret. Vengeance 1 disappeared into the stars and returned with alien wreckage trailing behind it. At first, the galaxy did not notice. A patrol ship here, a supply station there, destroyed so fast no one could see who did it. But then came the day of red moons. It happened on the mining world of Archon 7. The aliens had enslaved thousands of humans there, forcing them to dig until their hands bled. Without warning, the sky over Archon 7 turned crimson. Dozens of human ships, larger now, deadlier, dropped from orbit and opened fire. In one night, the mines were turned to glass, the overseers burned. And above it all, a single message was broadcast in every language: "We are still here. We have always been here. And we are coming." Across the galaxy, fear began to spread. But the Council still told themselves it was nothing. A few rebels, a few stolen ships. They did not understand. Back in his shuttle, David opened his eyes. The memory of those first battles felt heavy in his chest. The young officer sitting beside him, still pale from what happened at the Council, asked softly, "Sir, is it true that Earth was dying? That we were slaves once?" David's voice was quiet. "Yes, all of it, and worse." The officer swallowed hard. "And now?" David's lips curved in a faint, cold smile. "Now we make sure no one forgets what we learned in the dark." The next part of the recording showed Mara, much older now, standing on the bridge of the largest human warship ever built. Solar Hammer. The galaxy had finally noticed Earth's power and sent an armada to destroy it. Hundreds of alien ships, glowing with weapons, filled the void above Jupiter. Mara stood there, her hands clasped behind her back, and said only one word: "Fire." The Solar Hammer's main cannon roared. In a single blinding flash, the enemy fleet was gone. Nothing left but burning debris. For the first time, the Council sent envoys to Earth. They arrived on trembling legs, offering peace. Mara looked at them and said, "You never gave us peace. We took it, and now you'll give us respect, or we'll take that too." The officer in the shuttle stared at the stars outside, his face pale. How did we keep all of this hidden?" he asked. David looked at him, eyes cold and steady. "They laughed at us," he said simply. "So we let them. While they laughed, we worked. While they watched each other, we watched them. And when the time came," he let the words hang in the air. The officer finished them for him. "We burned them out of the sky." David nodded once, his gaze still fixed on the stars. The last part of the recording played. A secret meeting deep under the surface of Mars. The human fleet commanders gathered around Mara one final time. One young captain asked, "What if they attack again? What if they learn and come back stronger. Mara smiled faintly. Then, she said, we remind them. This was just the beginning. The shuttle moved silently through space. The human fleet above the Council world was still visible. Dark shapes against the stars. Waiting. David stood and straightened his suit. Prepare the next move, he said. The officer hesitated. Sir, do you really think they'll try again, after today? David's smile was sharp and humorless. They always do, he replied. They forget, and then we remind them. Outside, the stars seemed to burn brighter, as if the galaxy itself remembered the fire that once came from Earth. And somewhere, far away, in the blackest part of space, more human ships waited, silent, patient, and ready. Waiting for the day someone laughed again. The council hall still smelled of fear. The alien leaders sat stiffly in their chairs, staring at the doors where David Cole had disappeared minutes ago. Outside the great windows, the human fleet hung in orbit, black and silent. The stars seemed dim behind the massive ships, their sharp outlines glowing faintly red. One by one, the aliens started to speak. They can't possibly keep this up, muttered a silver-skinned diplomat, his hands trembling. No one builds a fleet that big in secret. A tall alien with golden scales slammed his fist on the table. You saw what I saw. Those ships are real. They're here, and our defenses useless. Another, with skin like cracked stone, leaned forward and hissed. We underestimated them. All these centuries we thought humans were weak, but those weapons, that fleet. The golden-scaled one's eyes narrowed. We need to find out how far this threat truly goes. What else are they hiding? Across the room, a faint beep broke the silence. The council's main screen came alive. A message blinked at the center. Transmission from Earth. Representative, classified priority. The silver-skinned alien swallowed and pressed the button. The screen flared with static before a calm figure appeared. David Cole. He stood with his hands behind his back, wearing that same black suit. The human fleet loomed behind him through a window on his ship. Esteemed Council, he began, his voice quiet but clear. I promised you fire if you mocked us. And still, you doubt. So let me show you exactly what you're dealing with. A second screen lit up beside him, showing a black void. Then lights appeared, one, then dozens, then hundreds. Enormous human warships emerged from the darkness like ghosts. Some were long and sleek, others monstrous and jagged, bristling with weapons. This, David continued, gesturing at the display, is just one of our fleets. One of 9. The aliens gasped. David let the silence stretch before speaking again. For centuries, we listened to your laughter. You dismissed us, but while you fought each other, we prepared. You called us primitive, but we were learning from you. Every battle you fought, every ship you built, every weapon you tested, we watched, we learned. And then we made something better. The golden-scaled leader stood abruptly, voice shaking with anger and fear. You expect us to believe you. Have 9 of these fleets? That you could build such power without anyone noticing? David's lips curved into the faintest smile. You believed what you wanted to believe, he replied softly. While you looked at each other, we were looking at you. While you laughed, we worked. You never noticed because you never cared. On the screen, the human fleet began to move. One by one, ships ignited their engines and fanned out into a terrifying formation, blocking out even more of the stars. The stone-skinned alien whispered, almost to himself, "They've been waiting for this moment." "Yes," David said, as though he had heard. "We've been waiting. But even now, we prefer peace. We do not want war. But if you force our hand..." The screen changed again. This time, it showed a planet, a council-controlled mining colony. Then came a beam of light from orbit. The surface cracked, glowed, and exploded into molten rock. The image froze on a wasteland of fire. David's voice stayed calm. This is what happens when patience runs out. Do you want this to happen here? The golden-scaled alien sat down slowly, his face pale. You can't destroy everything, he said weakly. If you destroy us all, what will you rule over? David raised an eyebrow. We don't want to rule, he said simply. We want respect, and we want our place at this table. Is that too much to ask? The council was silent. Suddenly, alarms blared again. The hall's walls glowed red as emergency lights spun. A mechanical voice announced, "Warning. Unauthorized fleet detected on the outer rim. Unknown energy signatures." The aliens stiffened. "What is this?" demanded the silver-skinned diplomat. David glanced to the side, then back at the camera. "Ah," he said softly. "They arrived." "What? Who arrived?" The golden-scaled leader shouted. David tapped his earpiece and murmured something inaudible. The feed shifted again, now showing live footage from deep space. Dozens of alien ships were burning, torn apart by an unseen enemy. Blinding weapons flashed, tearing through shields and hulls. At the center of the chaos was a human ship unlike anything they had seen before. It was massive, easily the size of a moon, and its surface shimmered like liquid metal. "This," David said, his voice low, "is what we built in the dark. The Abyss. You're looking at humanity's final answer." On the screen, the Abyss unleashed another weapon, a pulse of light that froze the enemy ships mid-flight before shattering them into dust. The council members sat frozen, staring at the destruction. Why are you showing us this?" The stone-skinned alien finally asked, his voice almost a whisper. David's gaze hardened. "So you understand what happens if you push us again. We could have destroyed you centuries ago. We chose not to. But don't mistake our silence for weakness. Not anymore." The council chamber was silent, except for the faint hum of the human fleet outside. Then the golden-scaled leader slowly stood and nodded. "We understand," he said, his words heavy with fear. "Earth will have its place at this table. No more laughter." David gave a faint nod. "Wise," he said simply. "I look forward to working with you as equals." The screens went dark, but just as the council began to relax, the walls glowed again. Another alarm. Louder this time. "New signal detected," the mechanical voice boomed. "Massive energy spike in the outer rim. Unknown origin. Approaching fast." The council members panicked, shouting over each other. "What now?" the silver-skinned alien demanded. David's voice returned on the comms. "Don't worry," he said calmly. "That's just one of ours returning home." On the screen, the stars bent and twisted as something vast came into view, even larger than the Abyss. Its surface was covered in glowing scars, its shape impossible to fully see as it seemed to blur reality around it. "This," David said softly, "is called the Revenant. The galaxy has never seen it before. Pray it never sees it again." The Revenant drifted past the council world without a sound, its shadow swallowing everything in its path. David's voice, quiet and final, echoed through the chamber. "Understand this, we came in peace. But if you ever forget who we are, we'll remind you the hard way." The Revenant vanished into the stars, leaving only silence behind. The council members sat frozen, their faces pale, their minds struggling to grasp what they had just seen. The golden-scaled leader finally spoke, his voice trembling. "We'll never forget again." Outside, the human fleet began to pull away, their engines lighting up the void like falling stars. The council planet was left intact, but everyone inside knew the truth. One wrong move and the fire would return. In his ship, David turned away from the window and spoke quietly to the officer beside him. "They understand now," the officer said. David's smile was faint and cold. "For now," he replied. "But they always forget. And when they do—" He looked back at the stars, where the Revenant still shimmered faintly in the distance. We'll remind them." And with that, the human fleet disappeared into the dark, leaving the galaxy to wonder when, not if, the fire would return. The council chamber was still tense from the last broadcast. The alien leaders sat quietly, their eyes fixed on the massive windows that overlooked the planet's orbit. Outside, the human fleet hung motionless like giant black statues against the stars. David Cole stood near the window, his hands folded behind his back. He watched the stars twinkle beyond the massive warships. "Sir," the young officer beside him whispered nervously, "they still don't know what to do." David smiled faintly. "They won't know until it's too late." The silence inside the chamber was thick. Alien voices whispered in low tones, trying to decide what to do next. Some called for calm, others for action, but none dared to move. First, suddenly, the large screens flickered on with images from deep space. "Sir," the officer said, pointing, "it's happening again." The council members gasped as the screen showed dozens of human dreadnoughts entering the planet's orbit. Their dark hulls glistened under the distant sun, weapons silent but ready. "They move like ghosts," one alien whispered. David nodded. "They do not waste energy on noise. Silence is a weapon." The council leader, golden-scaled and grim-faced, stood slowly. "Activate all defenses. Prepare for battle." But the screens showed a different story. The defense grid status turned from green to red. One system after another failed. The silver-skinned diplomat shouted, "What is happening? Our shields are offline." David's voice was calm but firm. "Our fleet disabled your defenses. Long before arrival, you cannot stop us." Panic spread through the chamber like wildfire. The three-eyed alien scrambled to his console. "We have no response. Our weapons are offline." "What do we do?" David turned to him. "Do you want war?" The alien hesitated. "No, but you leave us no choice." Outside, the human dreadnoughts moved silently into formation. Their cannons pointed toward the planet, but did not fire. The golden-scaled leader banged his fist on the table. "Why don't they attack? Are they mocking us again?" David shook his head. "No, this is a warning." The silence deepened. Number. Ship fired, no weapon flared. The fleet waited like a predator ready to strike. A tense moment passed. The council members looked at each other, fear growing in their eyes. The silver-skinned diplomat spoke carefully. "What do you want from us?" "Ambassador?" David's face was unreadable. "Peace, respect, a seat at this table." The golden-scaled leader sneered. "And if we refuse?" David's eyes darkened. "Then the fire will come." Suddenly, the station's alarms blared again. Red lights flashed everywhere. "Incoming vessel detected," shouted the officer. On the screens, a small human ship approached rapidly. It was sleek and silent, moving through the outer defenses like a shadow. The three-eyed alien panicked. "How did it get past our sensors?" David's voice was calm, almost amused. "Because you weren't looking for it." The ship docked inside the council's orbital station. The doors opened slowly, revealing a lone figure stepping inside. It was Mara. The room fell silent. She walked confidently to the center and looked at the council members. "You see now," she said, her voice strong. "We are not a joke. We are here, and we will not wait forever." The golden-scaled leader growled, "You threaten us with your fleet and your weapons. What do you want, Mara?" She smiled coldly. "We want the truth. We want the galaxy to know what you did to us. We want justice." The council members shifted uncomfortably. "Your time of hiding is over," Mara continued. "You took our world, enslaved our people, and laughed at our silence. Now you will listen." David stepped forward, joining her. "This is your last chance. Accept us, respect us, or face the consequences." The golden-scaled leader's eyes burned with anger. "You leave us no choice." Suddenly, the council's screens went black. The room shook violently as explosions rocked the station. Outside, the human fleet fired a precise non-lethal EMP blast, disabling all weapons and power systems on the station. The council was helpless. Mara's voice echoed through the silence. "This is not war, it is a warning. Heed it well." The council members sat in stunned silence, their faces pale. David turned to Mara. "They understand now," she nodded. "For now." The human fleet began to withdraw, engines glowing faintly as the council station fell into darkness, the golden scaled. Leader whispered, "They are not what we thought. They are something else, something far worse." David watched from his ship, eyes fixed on the retreating fleet. "We are not done," he said quietly. This was only the beginning. The stars above the council planet were still hidden behind the silent shapes of the human fleet. Dozens of massive warships floated in perfect formation, their black hulls catching faint light, their weapons pointed toward the surface below. Yet none of them fired. They just waited, still as stone. Inside the council hall, the alien leader stood frozen, staring at the great windows. The air felt thick, heavy with fear. David Cole stood calmly by the window, his hands folded neatly. Behind his back, the faint glow of the human fleet reflected in his eyes as he watched the council struggle to understand what was happening. The golden-scaled leader finally broke the silence. His voice shook, but he tried to sound defiant. "You show us your ships," he said. "You disable our defenses. But you haven't fired a shot. Perhaps your power is not as great as you claim." David slowly turned his gaze on him, his face unreadable. "You think silence is weakness," David said softly. "That is your first mistake." The silver-skinned Diplomat hissed, "If you are so powerful, then show us." "Prove it." David's lips curved in a faint, cold smile. He raised one hand and tapped the communicator in his ear. "This is Cole," he said. "Begin the demonstration." At first, nothing happened. The council members exchanged confused glances. The golden-scaled leader even scoffed, as if mocking David's words. Then the lights in the council chamber flickered and died. The windows darkened as the stars outside vanished under a sudden shadow. The council members rushed to the windows, their voices rising in alarm. One by one, human dreadnoughts moved forward, aligning into a single terrifying wall of steel and fire. Then, without sound, a massive burst of light flashed across the darkness, an electric wave that swept through the council's orbital defenses. On the screens, the alien fleet, hundreds of ships stationed to protect the planet, simply shut down. Their engines sputtered and darkened. Their weapons dimmed. One after another, they drifted helplessly into the void. The three-eyed alien gasped, "What? What did you do?" David's voice was quiet but firm. "An electromagnetic pulse," he said. "Strong enough to disable every system you've built without harming a single life." The golden-scaled leader sneered, though his eyes betrayed his fear. "Tricks, nothing more." David's smile widened slightly. "Then watch," he said. Outside, one of the human warships moved forward. Its surface began to glow faintly as massive panels unfolded along its sides. At first, the aliens didn't understand what they were seeing. Then a beam of golden light erupted from the ship. Slicing through the blackness, it struck one of the council's abandoned satellites, and the satellite melted instantly, vaporized to nothing. Another beam followed, this one cutting clean through a distant asteroid. The rock split apart in perfect halves, glowing red as it drifted away. The council hall fell silent. Even the golden-scaled leader could not speak. David walked to the window and spoke, without turning around. "We built weapons the galaxy has never dreamed of," he said. "We can burn worlds, silence fleets, erase cities. And yet, we are still offering peace." The silver-skinned diplomat swallowed hard. Why show us this if you don't mean to use it?" David finally turned to face them. His expression was cold, almost sad. "To remind you what silence means," he said. You laughed when you thought we were weak. You mocked our patience. You took our quiet for fear. But our silence was not fear, it was preparation. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Then the three-eyed alien dared to ask, "And if we agree? If we welcome you as equals, will you stop?" David's gaze softened slightly. "Then the fire remains only a memory," he said. "And the galaxy will be safer for it." Suddenly, alarms blared again. Red lights flashed across the walls. The council members jumped to their feet. "What is it now?" the golden-scaled leader demanded. The screens came alive with an image of another human ship, but this one was far larger than the others. Its surface shimmered with strange energy, its shape almost impossible to look at directly. David's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at it. "This," he said quietly, "was not supposed to arrive so soon." The council members stared at him in confusion. "What is it?" the silver-skinned diplomat asked, his voice trembling. David kept his eyes on the ship. "The solar hammer," he said. On the screens, the solar hammer moved into position above the council planet. Its panels began to glow brighter than the sun, casting long shadows over the ground. The golden-scaled leader panicked. You said this was a demonstration." "You can't." David cut him off with a raised hand. "Calm yourself," he said. "It will not fire unless I say so." But the ship's glow continued to intensify, filling the sky with a golden hue. Below, on the planet's surface, citizens looked up in fear as the daylight turned strange and fiery. The three-eyed alien fell to his knees. "Enough!" he cried. "We believe you. Stop this." David finally turned back to them, his expression cool. "Do you?" he asked softly. The silver-skinned diplomat nodded quickly. "Yes, we understand now. Earth deserves its place. No more laughter. No more defiance." David looked around the room, his eyes meeting each leader's in turn. "Remember this moment," he said. "Remember the silence that came before the fire. And remember what happens if you forget again." He tapped his communicator. "This is Cole," he said. "Stand down." Outside, the solar hammer's glow dimmed. Its panels folded back into place, and it drifted quietly away. The other human ships returned to their positions, silent and still. The council chamber was quiet again, but the fear in the air remained heavy. David adjusted his tie, then walked slowly toward the door. At the threshold, he stopped and looked back. "This was not war," he said. "It was only the show of power. Pray you never see more than this." And with that, he left. Outside, the human fleet began to retreat, engines igniting faintly as they slipped back into the black. The council leaders remained where they were, too stunned to move, too frightened to speak. The stars above were quiet again, but the memory of the fire lingered. David watched from his shuttle as the fleet melted into the darkness. The young officer beside him whispered, almost in awe, "Do you think they'll challenge us again?" David's smile was faint and cold. "They always do," he said. The officer hesitated. "And when they do?" David's eyes glinted as he looked out at the stars. "Then," he said, "we show them what true silence can do." And with that, the shuttle vanished into the night, leaving the galaxy with nothing but quiet and the memory of what had come with it. The council chamber, once the most powerful room in the galaxy, now felt like a cage. The alien leaders sat at the long black table, silent and pale. The shadows of the human fleet still hung over them, even though the ships had already withdrawn. No one spoke for a long time. The golden-scaled leader finally broke the silence, his voice hoarse and sharp. "They've humiliated us, in front of each other, in front of our people. This cannot stand." The silver-skinned diplomat raised his head slowly. "And what would you do? Attack? You saw what they can do. You saw what that solar hammer could have done to this planet. It would have burned us all in minutes. The golden-scaled leader slammed his fist on the table. "We are the Council. We have ruled this galaxy for thousands of years, and now we sit here shaking while they dictate terms like masters." The three-eyed alien spoke softly, his voice full of dread. Perhaps they are our masters now." His words hung in the air like poison. The room fell quiet again. Then another voice, thin but steady, came from the end of the table. It belonged to an old, shadowy figure, the stone-skinned elder who rarely spoke. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we have only ourselves to blame. We underestimated them, we mocked them. We called them weak while they grew strong. And now we pay the price." The golden-scaled leader turned on him, eyes burning with anger. "So you would have us submit, bow down to these humans?" The elder met his gaze without flinching. "I would have us survive," he said. The words sank into the others like stones into water. But the golden-scaled leader shook his head. "No, I will not let them rule us. We must fight." The silver-skinned Diplomat laughed bitterly. "Fight? With what? You saw what they did to our defenses. You saw what happened to the fleet. Even our strongest weapons barely scratched them. Do you really want to bring the fire back?" The golden-scaled leader's face twisted. But before he could answer, the chamber doors opened with a low hiss. Every head turned. Mara walked in, alone. Her boots echoed on the polished floor as she moved toward the center of the room. She wore no armor, carried no weapon, but her presence froze the council where they sat. The golden-scaled leader snarled, but his voice was lower now. "You come here uninvited, human." Mara stopped and looked at him. Her eyes were calm, but hard as steel. "You invited me," she said. "When you threatened my people, when you enslaved us, when you laughed at us, every word you spoke was an invitation." The three-eyed alien whispered, almost to himself, She's here to finish it." Mara tilted her head. She said, "Depends on you." The golden-scaled leader stood, trying to regain his dignity. "You think you can scare us into obedience?" "I don't have to," she replied. He barked a laugh. But it was thin, hollow. Mara walked closer to the table and placed a small device in the center. A hologram flared to life, showing images of human fleets, hidden bases, weapons testing grounds, and strange machines so powerful they made even the hardened council members flinch. "This," Mara said, gesturing at the display, "is only a fraction of what we've built. You've seen the solar hammer. You've seen our ships. But you haven't seen everything. Not yet." The silver-skinned diplomat swallowed hard. "What do you want?" Mara's gaze swept the room. "You already know what we want," she said. "A seat at this table, respect, equal voice. You end your schemes against us, and we end this, quietly." The golden-scaled leader sneered. "And if we refuse?" Mara's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then," she said, "there will be no table left to sit at." The room went still. Then the stone-skinned elder spoke again. "She is right. You know she is. We cannot win against them. Not now. Not ever. The galaxy has changed, and we must change with it." The golden-scaled leader sat down slowly, his defiance crumbling. Mara looked around the table. "This is your choice," she said. "We are patient, but not endlessly so. If you choose war, then we finish what you started. But if you choose peace, then perhaps we can rebuild what you've broken." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the silver-skinned diplomat nodded. I agree," he said. "Earth should have its place here." One by one, the others nodded as well. Even the golden-scaled leader finally lowered his head in bitter defeat. "It seems," he muttered, "the galaxy now belongs to them." Mara shook her head. "No," she said. "It belongs to all of us, if you let it." She picked up the small device, turned, and walked toward the door. But just as she reached it, A faint alarm blared, soft at first, then growing louder. The council froze. What now? The three-eyed alien whispered. Mara stopped and listened as a faint voice crackled over the chamber speakers. Incoming signal. Unknown origin. Multiple contacts detected. The hologram in the center of the table flickered, then showed dozens. No, hundreds of ships entering the edge of the system. But these were not human. And not council. They were something else. Strange, jagged silhouettes moved through space, dark and fast. Their energy signatures unlike anything the council had ever seen. The golden-scaled leader shot to his feet. Who are they? Mara stared at the display, her expression finally showing a hint of surprise. They're early, she murmured. The silver-skinned diplomat turned to her, panic rising. You knew about this? Mara didn't answer. The ships moved closer, forming an enormous ring around the system. The elder spoke softly, his voice almost broken. Another threat, he said. Another fire. Mara finally turned back to the council. You wanted to fight someone, she said coldly. It seems. You'll get your wish. But this time, you'd better pray we stand with you. Or you won't stand at all. Her words hung in the air like a blade. The golden-scaled leader's face turned ashen as he sank back into his chair. The chamber's lights flickered under the strange energy of the new arrivals. Mara walked to the window and watched as the alien fleet drew closer. Her voice was calm, but low. Get ready, she said. The galaxy is about to break. And in the silence that followed, the strange ships opened their weapons bays, and the stars outside began to burn. The council chamber was dark, lit only by the glow of the stars outside and the flickering images of enemy ships on the holograms. The alien fleet, strange, jagged and silent, had surrounded the system, cutting off every escape route. Their weapons shimmered with colors no one recognized. Their presence felt heavier than the coldest void. The council members sat frozen, their faces pale. The golden-scaled leader finally whispered, "We are finished." "No," said Mara firmly, her voice cutting through the gloom. All eyes turned to her. She stood tall at the window, watching the alien fleet move into formation. Her reflection in the glass was calm, but her fists were clenched. "You've fought humans," she continued. "You've underestimated us before. And yet you're still alive. You know why?" No one answered. "Because we were never your enemy," she said. "We could have crushed you long ago. But we didn't, and now." She pointed toward the window where the strange ships began charging their weapons. "Now you see what a real enemy looks like." The silver-skinned diplomat leaned forward, voice shaking. "What are they? Where did they come from?" "David's." Voice came suddenly from the chamber's speakers. He had stayed on his ship above the station, watching everything unfold. "We call them the Vexor," David said. "We've known about them for decades. They were asleep, buried in the void, between galaxies. But something woke them." The three-eyed alien trembled. "Why didn't you tell us before?" David's tone was cold. "Because you wouldn't have believed us," he said. "You barely believed we could build ships. And now you expect us to fight them alone?" The golden-scaled leader stood, his jaw tight. You want our help?" Mara turned sharply to him. "No," she said. "We want your courage, if you have any left." Outside, a bolt of alien energy flashed across the void, striking one of the council's abandoned satellites. The explosion lit up the darkness, and debris scattered across the stars. "They're testing us," David said through the speakers. "They won't stop there. They'll move to your cities next. Then your people, until nothing is left." The council chamber fell into uneasy silence. Then the stone-skinned elder spoke. "Then we stand with you," he said. His voice was low but firm. "The Vexor threaten us all. If humanity will fight them, then so will we." Mara turned to him and nodded once. The silver-skinned diplomat swallowed hard and added, Agreed. We cannot survive alone. One by one, the council members rose from their seats. Even the golden-scaled leader stood at last, though his face was hard and reluctant. Fine, he said bitterly. We fight together. Mara allowed herself a small smile. Good, she said. Then let's begin. She touched her wristband and spoke into it. This is Mara, she said. Signal the fleet. Formation Omega. Engage when ready. Outside, the human fleet began to move. Ships that had hovered silently before now roared to life, engines blazing, weapons unfolding. The Council's remaining defense ships flickered back to power as human engineers aboard the station rerouted energy to the grid. Shields rose, weapons. OBUMND. The golden-scaled leader stepped closer to the window, watching in awe as human and alien ships formed a massive circle around the planet. This is impossible, he murmured. Mara glanced at him. No, she replied softly. This is what happens when we stop fighting each other and start fighting them. A deafening boom rattled the chamber as the Vexor opened fire. Brilliant lances of energy streaked toward the human-alien alliance, slamming into shields and shaking ships. The battle had begun. David's voice came through the speakers again. Sharp and clear. All units, return fire. Target their heavy cruisers first. Keep their beams off the planet. Do not let them break the line. From the window, the Council watched as thousands of weapons lit up the void. Human railguns unleashed streams of molten metal that tore through Vexor armor. Alien plasma cannons fired in wide arcs, cutting through the enemy ranks. But the Vexor were relentless. Their ships moved like shadows, twisting through space, striking and vanishing. One Council ship exploded in a flash of green fire, spinning into the void. Then a human destroyer was split in half by a Vexor beam. The golden-scaled leader flinched. As the light blinded him, We're losing. No, Mara said firmly. We're learning. She pressed her wristband again. Cole, she called. Bring in the Revenant. The chamber fell silent. The Revenant? The silver-skinned diplomat asked, his voice barely a whisper. You're actually using that? David's response was calm. It's time. From the darkness beyond the Veon battle, the massive human ship known as the Revenant emerged. Its shape was almost impossible to see, its edges blurred, its surface alive with crawling lights. Even the Vexor seemed to hesitate. The Revenant opened its weapons bays, and space itself seemed to groan under the energy it unleashed. Beams of white light lanced through the Vexor fleet, carving holes in their formation. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before now shattered into glowing dust. The Council chamber erupted in cheers as Vexor after Vexor ship fell, torn apart by the combined human-alien assault. Mara stood at the window, her face lit by the glow of the battle. This is what we are, she murmured. When we stand together. The golden-scaled leader stared at her, his anger now replaced by something else, respect. Perhaps, he said slowly, we were wrong about you. Mara turned and met his eyes. You were, she said. The Vexor fleet began to retreat, scattering back into the void. One by one, their ships vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only wreckage and silence. David's voice came over the speakers again. All units, hold position. Do not pursue. Let them run. They'll think twice before coming back. The Council chamber exhaled as one. The tension broke, replaced by relief and disbelief. The stone-skinned elder rose to his feet. It seems, he said, that today we have witnessed the birth of a new alliance. Mara turned back to the stars, her voice quiet, but strong. No, she said. Not born today, forged today, in fire and silence. David's voice cut in one last time. And if they ever return, he said, we'll be ready, together. The Council members nodded, one after another, their differences forgotten in the glow of the battle's end. Mara straightened and walked toward the door. before she left, she paused and looked back at them. "This is your choice now," she said. "Keep fighting each other and die alone, or stand with us and live." The golden-scaled leader spoke, his voice steady at last. "We stand," he said. Mara gave a faint smile and left the chamber. Outside, the stars were quiet again. The human and alien ships hovered side by side in orbit, their weapons finally still. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy felt united. And in the darkness beyond, where the Vexor had fled, the silent promise of vengeance still glimmered. But now the galaxy was ready, together. The stars above the council world glittered faintly, cold and eternal. Yet something in their light felt different now. Something alive, waiting. In the great council chamber, now repaired and brighter than before, the leaders gathered again. This time, no one sat with folded arms. No one raised their voice in anger. The air was quiet, full of unspoken thoughts. David Cole stood near the window, as he always did, his hands clasped behind his back. Mara stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes hard but calm. For weeks now, the galaxy had been quiet. No sign of the Vexor, no attacks. No strange ships haunting the edge of space. Only silence, but no one believed it would last. The golden-scaled leader finally spoke. "We won the battle," he said slowly, "but it feels hollow, as if the real war hasn't even begun." Mara's lips curled in a faint, humorless smile. "That's because it hasn't," she replied. The silver-skinned diplomat shifted uncomfortably. "You think they'll come back?" David didn't take his eyes off the stars as he answered. "I don't think," he said. "I know." The three-eyed alien leaned forward, voice low. "Why would they retreat if only to attack again? They must have seen our strength." Mara looked at him sharply. "They retreated," she said, "because they learned something about us. They learned that this galaxy is not as easy to take as they thought. But that doesn't mean they're finished." A hush fell over the room. The stone-skinned elder broke it at last. "They are watching," he said softly, "waiting for us to grow weak again." David nodded slightly. "And they won't wait long." The golden-scaled leader slammed his fist on the table, but this time the sound was less defiant and more determined. "Then we make sure we don't grow weak," he said. Mara straightened, her voice steady and sharp. "Exactly," she said. "We use this time. We build. We train. We learn from each other. Because next time," she gestured to the stars beyond the window, "next time, they won't stop at a show of force. They'll come to burn everything." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the silver-skinned diplomat stood. "Then we need to prepare," he said. Together, one by one, the others nodded. Even the golden-scaled leader, his pride finally buried, gave a small but firm nod. Mara turned to David. "Show them," she said. David tapped his wristband, and a hologram flickered to life in the middle of the table. It showed the Revenant, larger and more terrible than ever, surrounded by ships of every design, human and alien alike. New weapons glimmered along their hulls. Strange energy shields rippled around them. Factories floated in orbit, building even more ships as workers swarmed like bees. "This is what we're building now," David said. "A fleet like no other. Fast, silent, deadly." The three-eyed alien stared in awe. "You've already started?" David's expression didn't change. "We started before the battle even ended," he said. The golden-scaled leader stared at the hologram, his eyes narrow. "And what do you call this? New fleet?" Mara answered before David could. "We call it the Ember," she said. "Because even when the fire seems gone, the ember remains, waiting to burn again." A quiet murmur ran through the council. Some looked inspired, others uneasy. Then the elder spoke again, his voice quiet but steady. "And when the Vexor return?" he asked. Mara met his eyes and answered without hesitation. "Then," she said, We light the fire. Outside, the great shipyards glowed against the darkness. Sparks of energy dancing in the void. New ships rose from the docks one after another, their engines humming faintly as they joined the growing fleet. Below, on the planet's surface, factories churned day and night, producing weapons, shields, and strange devices the Council had never seen before. For the first time in history, humans and aliens worked side by side, in silence, in sweat, in determination. David and Mara walked together down a long corridor toward the observation deck. "You think they'll be ready?" she asked quietly. David didn't answer at first. He stared out at the growing fleet, his jaw tight. "They don't have a choice," he said finally. Mara glanced at him. "And us?" she asked. David's eyes narrowed slightly. "We were ready before they even knew our name," he said. They reached the deck. Below them, the Revenant hovered, surrounded by smaller ships. The stars beyond seemed to watch in silence. Mara leaned on the railing, watching the sparks fly as a new dreadnought came to life. "Funny," she said after a long pause. David raised an eyebrow. "What is?" he asked. She gave a faint, dry smile. "All it took to bring this galaxy together," she said, "was the threat of fire." David's lips curled slightly, but there was no humor in his eyes. "That's because fire," he said quietly, "speaks a language everyone understands." As they stood there, the intercom crackled to life. A voice, calm but urgent, filled the deck. "Long-range sensors have detected movement beyond the void. Unknown signatures. Multiple contacts. Approaching." Mara's eyes hardened. "They're coming," she murmured. David gave the faintest nod. "Then let them come," he said. "This time, we're ready." The Council gathered once more in the chamber. Every leader stood, their eyes fixed on the hologram showing the approaching ships. Mara and David entered together. No one spoke, but all turned to them. David stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence. "This is it," he said. "The choice you made to stand together will be tested now. Do not forget what we've built. Do not forget why we fight. The Vexer think we are divided, weak. They think we fear the dark." He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the room. "But they are wrong," he said. Mara stepped up beside him. "They woke the ember," she said. "Now we show them the fire." Outside, the Ember fleet began to move. The Revenant's engines ignited, its massive form casting long shadows over the stars. Alien and human ships aligned into formation, their weapons charged, their shields shimmering. On the planet below, the people looked up at the sky, no longer in fear, but in quiet determination. The golden-scaled leader watched from the window, his claws gripping the railing. "They don't know what's coming," he muttered. Mara's voice came from behind him. "Neither do we," she said. "But that's the point." The first flashes of light appeared in the distance, faint at first, then brighter, like a whisper of fire across the stars. The Vexer were coming, but this time, they would not find a fractured galaxy. This time, they would find a wall of steel and silence. And fire. David's voice echoed through the chamber one last time, calm and certain. "Ready all units," he said. "It's time to finish what they started." Outside, the Ember fleet blazed into motion, engines flaring, weapons ready. In the quiet before the storm, the galaxy held its breath, and in the darkness beyond, the first whispers of fire began to glow.